Alright, so this is an update on an experiment I mentioned several months ago when I made my last set of stays. It was honestly so successful that I felt like it deserved a dedicated video, plus I've improved my design. I have now made 3 sets of stays, and the evolution of my thinking is as follows. These stays are from a 1790s pattern, and they are very dense, strong, and sturdy. The split at the top front allows the stays to separate at the bust line, giving it a slight curve under the bust. It's subtle, but it allows for a surprising amount of bust support. However, these stays are not very wearable because I had no clue about proper fit when I was making my mock-up. Wearing them for any length of time really starts to hurt my lower back. Seriously, just don't do what I did. Do not spend a whole month and a half of your life hand-stitching your first pair of stays. Save that for later once you kind of know what you're doing fit-wise. On top of that, they're also heavier and more rigid than I find necessary for daily wear, what with the many layers of linen and stiffening. The next set of stays, my sports bra stays, was my attempt to make the smallest and lightest pair of stays possible, but still get the conical shape. They have no stiffening and are made from 3 layers of linen. I did find that 3 layers plus boning spaced no closer than an inch apart was plenty to maintain the shape. However, as I've worn them, I noticed that they can be laced pretty loosely, barely even skin tight. And they still have decent bust support. However, over time, the bust will tend to sink down a bit. I believe the ladies refer to it as slithering. This called to mind a random blog post I stumbled across once while researching. Unfortunately, I have never been able to find that post again, so I can't cite my source, but frankly, I don't care about proving the historical accuracy nearly as much as the effectiveness. This blog referred to crescent moon-shaped cups or pads that were sewn inside the stays of larger women to prevent slithering. While wearing my sports bra stays, I realized that cups like this would be perfect to solve the support issues, and they would allow future stays to be made lightweight and flexible and laced loosely and comfortably. An ideal history-bounding mix no matter what your bust size. Also, can I just add that people are kind of acting lately like not wearing a shift underneath stays or any kind of corsetry is the root of all evil. And I mean, okay, I get it, especially when you're talking about really tight-laced and metal boning and all of that stuff, but these are not laced that tightly at all, and they're comfortable, they're fine. I made them to be washable. I mean, I get it. Typically, yes, but it's not a hard set rule. It's history bounding. Do what you want. My third pair of stays were again full length. This was the lightest pair yet, made from only 2 layers of linen. I will say that 2 layers is sufficient, except perhaps just at the ends of the boning channels, something that I'll attempt to solve in my next version. I made this pair with both tabs and straps, as splitting the weight between 2 zones seemed like the most comfortable design. And I still mostly think that's true, but it won't stop me from trying other variations in the future. And for this pair, I tried out the Crescent Cups, and they solved the problem. No more slithering. I have worn these stays frequently over the past several months. The fit is not perfect. It is a bit tight in the bust, which you can see by the way it has redistributed. And then it's also a bit long in the back waist, so they aren't as comfortable as they should be, but they are uncomfortable enough to prevent me from wearing them. However, after trial and error, I've decided to upgrade my Crescent Cups. The fill has flattened with wear, so they aren't quite as thick as they were, and also gravity is a thing. To give the smoothest shape, the fill really should orient so that the cups are thicker at the top edge and then taper to a thin lower edge. Over time, the fill has sank, and so now they're complete opposite of that. So that is the problem I most want to solve, though I've also thought of other upgrades I can add to my new version. For the pattern, I'm starting with the base I made last time. I made it by tracing the curve of the underwire of one of my bras and then filling it out into a crescent shape below. For this version, I'm going to adjust that slightly, mostly to make it a bit wider and a bit deeper. 18th century stay shapes distribute and flatten the bust, so I found that using the exact shape of a modern bra wasn't quite wide enough. And I'm making it a bit deeper so that there is slightly more room for the padding to distribute and make a nice slope. Then I decided to add a gusset to the inner curve, which will further help me to form it into a smooth wedge shape. I didn't add seam allowance to my patterns, so I'm tracing the selvage with a water-soluble marker. Then I'm going to pin each gusset to one side of the cups, using the pins to line up the blue markings. I'm machine stitching it, and I'm adding back tacks at the start and finish so that the gusset doesn't pull away while I maneuver it into position against the other side of the cup. Now, to keep the fill in position better, this time I'm going to try essentially quilting it. I'm going to make markings on both sides of the cup and stitch along them, which will help to trap the fill in place and allow me to form it into a nice sloping wedge. Last time, I attached the pads by whip stitching the top corners to the stays. This time, I want to make them easily removable, mostly so that I can switch them between different stays and boned bodices instead of having to make a new set every time. So I'm going to make an eyelet in each top corner. Then, inside the stays, I'm cutting a short length of cotton tape, 1/8 of an inch wide, and stitching the center down inside the stays. And if you're wondering how I knew where to place it, just pin the cups into position, try on the stays, and adjust the fit until comfy. Now the cups can be simply tied into place.
Hey, so an update for you. Don't be like me, try your stuff on before you finish it. This one turned out really thick, like almost concave up here. So, while this would work excellently for somebody with a larger bust size, for me, it was just too much. So what I did with this one is I took about half, maybe, I don't know, it's really, it already got crushed down. And then I restitched it with 5 rows of quilting, and then I did a much better job of kind of gradienting it towards the top and then making it very, very thin at the edges. So I need to repeat that now with this one, and then this project should be done. It was meant to be like an afternoon project, but everything is more complicated.
Now that they're done, here's my thoughts. My first thought is that this project was a bit redundant for me. I think it would have worked just fine if I had simply redistributed the fill in my old cups and then quilted it into position. But I'm glad that I made them, primarily because I love the level of control I had in shaping the wedge. And I think that making cups with gussets like this would be ideal for plus-sized and large-busted women. So I guess this project was for you. I'm roughly a high B, low C cup, and I don't think the gusset was super necessary for me, but others might find it a useful idea. Another useful idea, the first time I filled them, one cup ended up slightly denser than the other, which was an accident, but some people might want to do that on purpose. Did you know that a lot of people have uneven busts? I've heard it's especially common for athletic women or even girls who grew up doing sports, but don't do them now. Especially throwing sports, because there will be an uneven distribution in muscle development. But I've also heard that it's common with plus-size women too, just in general. If you've noticed this is the case for you, you could try intentionally upsizing one pad to account for the size difference. And similar pads could be made for other unique body factors, and for other time periods. Another thought. One reason I wanted them to be detachable is because this spring I want to experiment with making some casual 18th century dresses, and I'm wondering if a bit of boning in the bodice, plus these cups, would be enough to support the shape without stays. So yeah, this was a simple, quick little project that should be doable for any skill level, and if you find the gusset intimidating, skip it. They can be made from any scrap fabric you have lying around, and could easily be added to an existing or purchased set of stays, if the support needs improving. I find that they make the stays much more comfortable and wearable in daily life.